Hi, friends. Welcome to Bar of the Conference. I'm your host, Derek Scott III. Today's episode is with Dr. Michael Bowie. Dr. Mike is an elder in the North Texas Annual Conference and the National Director of Strengthening the Black Church for the 21st Century, one of the national plans of the UMC. With over 20 years of experience as a pastor, church strategist, and transformative leader, he is now leveraging his gifts to strengthen Black congregations across our connection. I didn't plan on this being a super personal conversation, but Dr. Mike's ability to speak to the gifts and realities of the Black church are so compelling. In this episode, we discuss the history of the UMC as relates to its support and lack thereof of Black Christians. We talk about the ways that theology and age do not have to be points of division, and the shifts that we all need to make as we consider the future of our denomination. Dr. Mike is not afraid to tell it like it is, but he is also the kind of leader that keeps hope on the table. Of many things you're going to hear, you will be challenged to consider how you, yes, you, can support the ongoing work of strengthening the Black church as a key component of the United Methodist Church's future. So as always, grab that notebook and that choice beverage, but also pay attention, particularly to the show notes, as there is an opportunity for you to support SBC 21 in its work. So be challenged and inspired by this episode with Dr. Michael Bowie. Dr. Mike Bowie, how you doing today?
I am doing well, Derek. How
Awesome.
you doing, buddy?
I'm good. And I am grateful that you were willing to join me on this podcast. Real excited to hear some of your story. I've just watched you in leadership, particularly the last few years,
Really?
in different spaces. And I because I wasn't raised United Methodist, there are always these parts of our connection that I find out about. I was like, how long has that been around? And people were like, that's been around for a while. Like, how long has that person been doing leadership? Like, you don't know them? I was like, no.
Yeah.
and so I remember just catching the wind of strengthening the Black church and the work that you all did, but honestly not knowing a whole lot about it, and then meeting you in some other spaces and like, well, so who's Dr. Mike? And so I'm just really grateful to get a few minutes with you.
Well, and thanks for the invitation, man. I appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely. And so I'd love to just hear, just to start off, your journey of faith, how you became a follower of Jesus, but also United Methodist Christian, God's prevenient grace in your life. I'd just love to hear some of that.
Well, like you said, I wasn't always United Methodist. I was born and raised Catholic. Born and raised Catholic to about 19 years of age. A friend of mine invited me to Windsor Village United Methodist Church. Windsor's church in Houston, Texas, was one of the largest churches back in the I think late 90s, early 2000s, African-American and Black church under the leadership of Kirby John Caldwell. And so there, matter of fact, I remember the date, November 18th, 1990, became a member of the United Methodist Church. And I never forget, my mama came home. I said, hey, mama, I joined Windsor. She said, you joined the church? You left the church. I said, well, they told me I was the church. And so, just going back and forth. Well, they had some good singing and good preaching. And I'm like, well, that pretty much kind of defines what a church is about, for the most part. So joined the church November 18, 1990. 92, Windsor got a second campus in downtown Houston. I was a senior at the time at Texas Southern University. And I heard Windsor had another campus. They asked people to go to the place close to where they live. So I went to visit. It was St. John's downtown. And at the time, Pastor Rudy and Juanita Rasmus were the campus pastors. Kirby John, Pastor Caldwell was the actual senior pastor. So went there, visited 92, became a member in 93. I had desire to go to law school. I was accepted to Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And that summer of 95, man, I lost the passion for law and encountered what it means to be a person of grace, and accepted my call and went to St. Paul School of Theology for seminary in Kansas City, Missouri. And went there from 95 to 98, came back home. Now, mind you, all I had was my context of ministry was Windsor Village and St. John's, all cutting edge, very Wesleyan driven, not so much as United Methodist, Wesleyan driven, which I would say I'm a pretty much strong Wesleyan follower. But I learned that those two contexts, it's not the norm for the United Methodist Church. So came back, got appointed to a church, Love United Methodist. It was a declining suburban church, Black church in North Houston. I was reared in South Houston, in the southern part of Houston. My wife was from North Houston, so I ended up matriculating up north, became an honorary North Sider, as we would call it. Church that was declining, and it grew physically, numerically, from, I would say, 100. I had like 121 on the roll to close to 800 when I left. So the church, man, I would attribute the growth to preaching, community outreach, and we had a strong sense of teaching. We did spiritual formation was real strong there, and but engaging the community was another thing. So the church grew. I ended up going Ginsburg Church, 2004. Left a Texas Annual Conference and went to West Ohio. I've been hearing about Mike Slaughter, read some of his books, and ended up being the teaching pastor there from 04 to 09. Had brain surgery, came back to Houston. I'm from Houston, came back here to heal, and had a baseball-sized tumor to the right side of my brain. It had been there 12 years. I didn't know it. The neurologist said, "We thought you were going to die. So I'm glad you all aren't God." So Derek, wow. Every day I have this mantra, man, that I say, embrace life. So if you follow the medium, embrace life means to live in the present. All we have at this moment at 8:47 Central Time. We have this moment. I live in the present. I live on purpose. And every day I live with passion. That's what it means to embrace life for me. So been embracing life, man, since 2009. Fast forward, went to Stony Brook Church in Gahanna, Ohio, which is a suburb of Columbus. First Black pastor there. And unique thing about that, when I got there, Derek, 4 families left immediately because of my race. They said we can't control handling Obama, but we can control handling Bowie. So they chose me not to be their pastor. So four families left, and it was okay. I said their loss, but that was a unique experience. Left there 5 years later, went back to Texas, St. Luke Community United Methodist Church. St. Luke was, if I don't know if you know, Dr. Zan Wesley Holmes. Zan Holmes is probably one of our spiritual giants in Methodism. He was a part of instrumental of BMCR and Black Methodist for Church Renewal back in '68. Very justice-driven guy. The church had gone through a major, prominent church, one of the Black flagship churches around the country. So I went there to help revitalize it. And I would say under my leadership, man, we experienced growth spiritually, got healthy in leadership, got our identity back. Church grew like 38%. So we had some people joining, but also it wasn't about physical joining, but it was about getting the church positioned to be ready for what God was doing. So we left 3 months into the pandemic, and getting a call to go to St. Luke, to go to be the national director of Strengthening the Black Church, and been here since 2020. So we shifted during the pandemic, and if you look at my journey, man, it's all been about revitalizing, doing things innovative, doing things that are different, and so that's what caused me to this work.
I appreciate just the breadth of where you've been, and I'm wondering, as you sort of went from these different appointments, what has been your thought about the United Methodist Church in the U.S. Generally, but specifically as a Black pastor?
Wow.
In the denomination, what is your thought about? Not so much where we could go. We'll talk about that later. But we'll talk specifically about the role of the Black church in Black United Methodism. But I'm just wondering generally.
Just my
what's your thought?
Well, I think a good question. I think first of all, 98. Well, I'll go even from 90. This denomination, for lack of a better word, has been pretty good to me. And I say that very selfish, but very with a heart of gratitude. When I came into this denomination, I'm thinking everything was like Windsor and St. John's, cutting edge, vibrant. But when I saw the desperate need for strategic leadership and having vision, I knew this is where I was supposed to be. And I would say what I appreciated about this is really just the emphasis on grace. I mean, I wasn't, always saved. I wasn't always following Jesus. And for this denomination to allow me to be a part, if you would, of this tribe was very honoring. And I've had great, for lack of a better word, man, success/significance in this denomination. But that hadn't come with a lot of trial and error. My first appointment, one bishop, and I would keep their name anonymous, but a lot of times as a Black person, male or female, when you've gone through the process, jumped through all the institutional hoops, I'm an ordained elder, came under the 2000 Book of Discipline. I was an ordained deacon for 2 years, an elder. And one bishop once said, it's kind of disappointing that we get our brightest stars and put them on the most dismal appointments. And I agree with that to a certain degree. But that church really formed me. I was able to do things I had never done. I'm not screwed up a lot, man, but I was able to do ministry in my own thought, and they let me do it. But at the same time, the church grew. But I remember one time, and I wrote this note down as I was preparing for this. The church, we were outgrowing our space, and it was time to relocate or either build or relocate. So we had building, it was called missions and building relocations. So it was kind of like, would be like congregation development, a new church starts to this day. I go there, I keep this person name anonymous, and this person says, are you going to be like one of them Kirby Johns? Like, huh? We need people connected. And are you going to be one? I said, well, no, I'm going to be Mike Bowie. That's who I'm going to be. Well, a lot of times, he didn't say you people, but he said, a lot of people in the Black church, they come, and you got this champagne vision and a beer budget. I said, okay, that's why I'm here for support.
My gosh, wow.
So that was my first encounter, Derek, of racism, man. I'm like, microaggression. I'm like, dude, so just tell me how you feel. So I don't know if he had something, axe to grind, but I was, the object of his anger. But when relocating, different facilities and the church grew. But I would say, man, that really lifted my leadership acumen to give me understanding what empowerment and community engagement looked like. So I moved around the country, man, and not because I was insufficient, but the itinerancy really. Everywhere I went, it was a divine assignment. They needed me there. And I realized now I'm a revitalizer. I'm not one who closes. I'm one who comes in, identifies it, turn things around, and God, what's next? So this denomination has really helped me to live into my strengths. But unfortunately, Derek, when I got here, I never compare myself to anybody, but I would always look at myself as a white male colleague counterpart, same seminary education, different school, but they would always have like the better appointment. I'm like, man, I can hold my against anybody, but I always thought it's disparaging, with being black, but I always, I knew how to make lemons out of lemonade. That's where I was reared, even as far back, we had to build brick with straw. So, I didn't complain about it, but I saw every problem as a possibility, and man, we just made it happen. So I think my attitude has really helped me in spite of this unfortunate racist. This is just very institutionalized, and this stuff will come out. And I think I would say this, and the first time I've said this publicly, I've been, I would say, they're demonized or created this demarcation because I've come out of the camp of Windsor and St. John's. They say Pastor Rudy, he was a local pastor, is a local pastor, retiring this year, and he wasn't Methodist United. He didn't jump through the hoops, but he's a heck of a leader, very Wesleyan. So I think I kind of got some of that tainting, but in spite of what people said about me, I just kept doing ministry, kept trusting God. And so I've had a great time in this journey. I'm 54. I think I want to do this maybe about 10, 12 more years. But this has been a good place for me, but I would dare to say it's been without struggle. It's been a struggle, man. But through it all, man, I've trusted God. I believed in myself in spite of what people have said. And my track record speaks for itself. So I think my journey has prepared me for where I am for such a time as this. So hopefully I answered your question, man.
Oh, you totally did. And if we had time, I would pull some of those threads, but I'm gonna keep us moving. Some context, I think, for folks is that the history of the United Methodist Church and its treatment of Black Christians is fraught from the Methodist Episcopal Church splitting over the issue of slavery.
1844.
And then coming back together in 1939. But the compromise being the central jurisdiction for all Black United Methodist clergy and churches, so that white congregations would never have to receive a Black clergy person. And my understanding, and we won't, unless you want to, we won't go deep into the central jurisdiction here. But there's the weird compromise of it. And then there was the opportunity for Black empowerment that also came from it. That then that sense of Black empowerment, at least my understanding, gets lost in 1968 when we become the United Methodist Church. Joining with the Evangelical United Brethren. And so that's just created this oppression upon oppression. That has created a I don't know what the right word is, but a cycle by which has made it very difficult for Black congregations to
maybe
actually
thrive or
and maybe as I want to talk about strengthening the Black church. But I'd love for you to give me some perspective. I mean, I just gave those historical dates.
That's good. I think you painted a picture for those who don't know the journey of the establishment of the United Methodist Church. But I was just thinking, man, and we can go as far back, Derek, as 1787, when you had Richard Allen and Absalom Jones was a part of this first Methodist movement, and they were in St. George's Church in Philadelphia. And this group of Black people were part of this kind of sect, and they were doing well. They go to the altar to pray. They pulled up, said, "No, you can't pray here, or not at this time." So that's how you had the branch of the AME, African Methodist Episcopal Church, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones. So, but the crazy thing about this, Derek, as you say, it's been layer upon layer. And even as you were saying it, you almost getting tired and almost traumatized thinking about the stuff we've gone through. So close to 200 plus years, Black people, we've still been here, and we've been, if you will, for lack of a word, faithful and committed to this movement, or I call it movement. It's institutionalized now, but United Methodist Church. So, but going back what you said, 1939, you would think to be blatantly segregated, but still here, it was a lot of empowerment in the central jurisdiction. I mean, Black people had a sense of identity. They knew who and whose they were, and it was kind of some self-determination. But then it was just always want to ascribe to be part of the denomination. And I wasn't there, but most of my reading shows that when we became United Methodists, we kind of lost our sense of being as Black people. I don't know if we were ashamed, but we want to ascribe and fit in. So I would say this in a nutshell. I call these Bowieisms. Instead of coming to be transformers, we became conformers. We conformed to the dominant culture, and it's been our demise ever since. Because, I would say, let's be honest, we're kind of, somebody said UMC means upper middle class. So we're a learned denomination, kind of elitist. But I would say for the most part, you had some Black people who just believe that, education is great. I believe in education. I have my doctorate. But the point is the sense of being human, being validated at our humanity. And I would say this, Derek, since 1844 to 1939 to 1968, I would say we as Black people, we have been merely tolerated rather than celebrated. And that's painful, but the mere fact we're still here. And we'll talk more about General Conference, but even after General Conference, what would it look like for us who stand? And we can't stay the same way. There's gonna be some non-negotiables. And we've been taken for granted so much. And with the world becoming more diverse and browning, if you would, the denomination hasn't. And I'm like, yeah, what's up with that? So it's been disappointing. I would say if we stay on this conversation long enough, I think it would trigger and evoke some trauma that our foreparents have dealt with. And I think maybe you and I on this call probably is almost, if you would, a dream or what is that T-shirt says? Our ancestors' wildest dream or something.
We're our ancestors' wildest dreams. Yeah,
and I think but those dreams didn't come without struggle and sacrifice and pain.
Right.
So I would say, man, this denomination, and then I would say that the tipping point was George Floyd, May 25th, 2020. And this denomination finally, I thought we got it right. I thought we was going to get it. And we had this whole banner of dismantling racism as a result of George Floyd. But we can go all the way back. But it took I think George Floyd's death was a strategic death. I believe to shift the narrative, to change the whole perspective of United Methodists. But unfortunately, there's a saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And now George Floyd has become just an afterthought, a hashtag, a bumper sticker. And it vexes me and it hurts me. But I still believe that I'm called to be here. You're called to be here. And Black people and people have been kissed by the sun long, and others are still called to be here. But we can't be taken for granted anymore.
Dr. Mike, I think it's important that people listening understand that two things can be true. There can be a true, valid sense that the denomination has, on its best day, tolerated people of color. And not truly included and involved people of color in decision making. And your experience can be one that the denomination, which actually means very specific people, have been good to you.
Right.
both of these things can be true. That I can say the same thing as a layperson,
Right.
in the United Methodist Church in Florida specifically, that I can't ignore the history.
Right. Right.
And yes, individuals and congregations and conferences have been really good to me.
Right.
And I think sometimes the work begins at us just being willing to hold both of those narratives.
Intention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's good.
take me to strengthening the Black church and how it comes on the scene, and give me some of that history, and some of what the original hope was for it, and where we are now.
I'm gonna do it in 5 minutes. I'm doing it.
You can take as long as you need to.
So for those who are listening, BMCR is Black Methods for Church Renewal. It was birthed in 1968 in the merger when we became United Methodist. And BMCR is the only identified Black caucus which addresses the advocacy and the needs of Black people in the United Methodist Church. So it would be the advocating arm of the Black church. 1996, people say, you know what, we need more resources to make churches vital, sustainable, and relevant in these times. So Strengthening the Black Church for the 21st Century came out in 1996, which was the only identifiable resourcing arm for the Black church. So you have BMCR advocacy, SBC 21 resourcing. They didn't birth out of each other, but there were unique things. But BMCR came first, and we worked together well. But so SBC came to, how do we strengthen churches? How do we strengthen pastors and laypersons to be the best leaders, the best version of themselves, if you would. But also we're committed to connecting with pastors in cross-racial appointments. So you have coaching, you have consultants, you have National Network of Young Adults, which is a focus of identifying, equipping, and deploying young adults 18 to 35, in the Black church, sometimes 18 to 40.
Yes.
42,
mm-hmm.
You know.
Yes.
It stretches. It depends on what region you're in the country, what jurisdiction. But
absolutely.
So we committed. So we create pipeline and ecosystem for young Black clergy to go through the process, to be ordained, also to be innovative, impactful persons in the marketplace. So we create that. But then also we have this Office of Social Justice and Transformation, where we seek to end mass incarceration. We help congregations get involved in issues of social justice, to be equipped, empowered, and educated on things like poverty, things like what is recidivism, things like what is human sex trafficking, what is how is poverty connected to mass incarceration, and how do those look, and how can you get involved in that? So those are some of the things we do with SBC 21. And unfortunately, Derek, since its infancy, since its beginning, it was never adequately funded compared to the other national plans, whether it be Hispanic plan, Korean plan, Asian plan. So we're the Black plan of United Methodist Church. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, as we move forward 25, 26, almost 27 years later, with everything shifting, with disaffiliation, uncertainty of our future, guess who gets the chopping block first? The Black church. Now, world services is where people give their tithes and offers their benevolence. So we get our budget is birthed out of that, and we're housed under discipleship ministries, which is the discipleship arm of the Black church, where the late Junius Dotson was the general secretary to see all the people. So with every plan, you have agencies that cover it. So we right now, discipleship ministry, we have SB 21 and the national and the not Hispanic, Native American plan. So with that being said, our budget has been decreased, but our work still increases. The need doesn't change. So that's kind of the history of SBC 21, and the work is needed now more than ever before. I think in the last segment I told you about the whole issue of racism. And if our goal in 2020 was to dismantle racism based on the death of George Floyd and others, from everything from Tamir Rice to the first one, who was what's in Florida? And
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon.
Mm-hmm.
But the lack of investment in the Black church. I mean, I hopefully somebody from Connectional Tables listened to this video, and even some bishops. So how can you say you're trying to dismantle racism and you aren't investing in the very people who've been impacted by racism? And to me, to not invest in the Black church is to perpetuate that what you're saying you're trying to dismantle. So to not invest in the Black church right now, to me, is a disservice. I would say, just sinful. But we're still doing great work. We don't complain, but we just do the best we have with what we have. And we would love you all to support SBC 21. You don't have to be Black to support it. If you are ally of justice and you believe that all people are created equal, we would love for your support. So that's what we do. That's who we are.
Dr. Mike, what is the gift of the Black church to the United Methodist Church?
Wow. I would say, going back, there was this guy, they called him Black Harry. Harry Hoosier was a heck of couldn't read or write, but he was a heck of a preacher. They say he was one of the best preachers, Black or white, just being a part of this movement. So we have prophetic preaching. We have that prophetic voice of really speaking, if you will, for lack of a better word, truth to power. Our way we worship. Now, mind you, for those who are listening, Black people, we're not a monolith. We're both progressive, liberal, centrist, and conservative. We love high church, low church, and no church. So some people love high and great hymns. Some people love just the holiness and vibrant praise and worship. So we bring all that. We have a flavor that we bring, I believe, that makes this United Methodist Church better. I mean, to a denomination, I believe that is insipid, that's very kind of bland. We bring flavor. And of course, Hispanics and other plans, minority plans. But I would say for us, when you had church growth, Derek, in the 90s, it was the Black church. It was the Windsor Village. It was the Hope. What's Hope? Dr. Carlisle Felding Stewart, Dr. Stewart in Detroit. You had Tyrone Gordon. You had Zan Holmes. So we had the Black church really help this thing keep moving forward. But and we have a love, passion for community. We're very compassionate people, and I say that in a broad range, because I would say a lot of times we lean more on Eastern of being communal versus being individualistic. So so between our prophetic voice, between our worship, between our community engagement, I would say our social justice understanding, I think it can be stronger, and we'll talk about that later. But we bring something, and all of this, Derek, was birthed out of some people are fourth and fifth generation United Methodists, but most of us, I would say, have been engrafted, for lack of a better word, into this, because we love the issue of grace. We love what kind of what Wesley laid out. But I think for the most part now, as the Black church, and I want to just say this, we can't lose the stuff that God has given us. And I believe there is this thing now I've learned. I just got this phrase. It's called learned helplessness. So if you Google learned helplessness, it's when you've gone through seasons and moments of negativity and trauma, it literally shapes one's being, and one's fate is determined. Well, why do I need to try again? Because I'm just going to fail. And that's what learned helplessness does. So I believe right now, Derek, we are in a season of learned helplessness, Black people, and not realizing that I believe Dr. King said it best, the local church is still a hope for the world. And I believe the Black church is going to be the church, Derek, that's going to navigate us out of this season of uncertainty. Because, you know, this disruption is not new to us. We've been disrupted since 1619.
Come on now. Yeah.
So we can show you how to love and lead out of disruption. But I believe I'm speaking. This is now a shameless plug. If you give us resources, I'll show you how to lead. I'll show you how. My love doesn't cost anything, but I will show you how to love and lead, because this costs, man. And people want us to do more with less. And then they say the Black church ain't doing anything. I would say this in closing. Viola Davis, actress Viola Davis, was being interviewed about. It wasn't Derek Scott, but somebody was interviewing her. And they said, Viola, what's different between you and Meg Ryan or Julia Roberts? She said, you know what? I can do just as much as them. But the thing about us is opportunity. They give me an opportunity. So, you know, if I was afforded the same opportunity as my white colleagues, I'll show you what I can do. But unfortunately, there have been a few bad cases in our Black context that's kind of paint this picture negative about the Black church. And there's more, I would say, other churches who've done more, but they always get more funding. And most of my counterparts, Derek, they get promoted even when they fail.
Yeah. So
that's something about the Black church. But the gift is, but guess what, man? We're resilient.
Yeah, we are.
We're resilient. I mean, we keep moving forward. And I would say, if the denomination doesn't celebrate us, we're gonna start celebrating ourselves.
Come on.
Yeah. So that's kind of my role. I don't speak for all Black people, but as a national director, I want us to realize that, to reclaim who we are and be unapologetic about it, to love our dreads, to love who we are. And sometimes we might put a preposition at the end of the sentence, but it's okay. We love Jesus. Yeah. So that's, yeah. So but we're a gift. And sometimes we have to let people know. And sometimes we forget, man, we're gifted people. I mean, we were birthed out of the struggle.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people have learned from us. I've talked to Latina, you know, Latinx and Hispanics. They said, man, you know, we learn from you all because we understand the struggle. And you all have, and we hadn't made it through the struggle. It's still a struggle, but we've come a long way. And by God's grace, we're still here. And we got a long way to go. And it's happened through this context called United Methodist Church.
Let's take a quick break.
Yeah.
Dr. Mike, this podcast is called Bar of the Conference. It is specifically about the United Methodist Church and really looking at our general conference. And I'm asking the question of, you know, what are the stories? What are the narratives that people are taking with them into the bar of the conference? What are we can talk about legislation that definitely will happen the closer we get to 2024. But it's these lives, it's these stories, it is these narratives that can't be legislated, but are as much in the conversation as any of the issues that we're dealing with. So I say all that. Usually I then direct us to these pivotal moments.
Yeah.
And I think that we can acknowledge that 1844 was a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
1939, 1968. For strengthening the Black church, 1996, General Conference. The special session in 2019, I think, is a pivotal moment that has us one of the main factors of the disruption we're living right now. And so I've asked all my guests about their response to the passing of the traditional plan. And I'm curious your thoughts on it.
Okay.
As well as your take on how Black United Methodists received that news, and its aftermath, and we'll see where we go from there. But I loved your take on what happened in February of 2019.
Good setup, Derek. I think life has defining moments.
Mm-hmm.
And you call disruptive moments. And I think 2019 was a very defining or disruptive moment that I believe that God was trying to get our attention. I was there. I wasn't as a delegate, but I was there as a board member of Discipleship Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And as I sat in the bleachers and watching the votes, it took me back there to, and I said this, so just, I wrote a book called Dare to Shift. And in one chapter, I compared that 2019 vote to that of Richard Allen and Absalom Jones being pulled out of the St. George's Church. Yeah. And I say, you know, Black people were good enough to build up your numbers, but they weren't human enough to really be a part fully of the family. So they had to leave out. And I think with the whole issue of LGBTQ, not comparing the two, but they're both issues of justice.
Yeah. And
for that to be the center of the focus and to get that like a slap in the face, it was all to me, it was like just 1787 all over again. Once again, people are tolerated, but not fully celebrated. And you know, and I say this, and I in the Black community, Black context, you know, there was a gay man playing the organ. Not saying all people play, but he was a part of the family.
Yeah.
But was never fully included in the family because of being other, being different, but still created in the Imago Dei.
Yeah.
So 2019 really affected me, and not realize I was going to be in this space of work. So less than a year later, I got put in this position, and it's like, how do I leverage this moment and not see another 2019 happen again? So with that being said, you know, how do we leverage, lift up, and heighten the stories of people from all walks of life? Because I believe all people matter to God. And the traditional plan is just that, a traditional plan. But I believe, what's God's plan? God has a plan for this church. And for those who went traditional, your GMC, God bless them. But for those who are here, how do we use this moment to really live into the beloved community? What does that look like? So that's my assignment. That's my assignment. You know?
I appreciate that. I want to take us down a very specific road, and it's a bit risky. So
okay.
We'll see what happens.
Let's see.
Okay. We are aware, you said it earlier, that the Black church is not a monolith. And that is both in worship style and in
politics.
Everything. Right?
Everything.
And so theology for sure. And so as there are some Black United Methodists who are like me, who progressive is not really the most accurate term, but that's the camp I get put in.
Yeah.
And some of it is because I'm an out gay man and believe that this is the way God created me. And so I get put into those categories. Fine. And yet I am aware of Black United Methodists that would not be labeled progressive.
Right.
And do not have their eyes towards inclusion of queer folk as sort of a priority, if it's even on the list of things that need to happen in the church. We have that whole spectrum within the Black church.
Right.
And I just want to observe something as we are watching disaffiliations and some congregations now joining the Global Methodist Church. My observation is, and somebody can email me and tell me that I'm wrong, it is relatively few Black congregations that are A, disaffiliating,
right,
and B, going to the Global Methodist Church.
Right. Correct.
And I can name that some of it is when you scramble just to keep the program and operating budget together, thinking about how you're gonna pay a pension liability is not even in the conversation. So I want to name that. But am I wrong in this observation that it's relatively few that are leaving? And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
You're correct. I mean, just the research to show probably, I would say maybe less than 2% of Black churches around the country have disaffiliated. Some have disaffiliated because they want to be independent. They want to pay apportionments. So, but others have left because they say they believe in the Bible. They believe, and I would say there's been a lot of fear mongering that the church is becoming gay. The church is becoming too liberal. We're trying to change Jesus. All those false narratives, which are far from the truth for those who are listening. But I would say this is a moment, Derek, for me. I can be in conversation and relationship with you as a heterosexual male. But at the same time, I think because I know who I am and whose I am. But I think where we are right now, this is a defining moment. What would it look like if your peers would have a conversation with me and my peers, and we say, you know what? So check this out. I like giving kind of hypotheticals, but just if you're driving down a street in Jacksonville, Florida, and a white cop sees you, they don't see a gay Black man.
They do not see a gay Black
man who is whatever narrative you have. They don't see if you're Democrat, Republican. They see a Black man. When they see me, they see a Black man. So with that being said, we put ourselves in these camps. So my thing right now, because Black people and white people, we all have gay people in our family. My stepbrother's gay. And because we have a different ideology, understanding of sexuality, he's still my brother. Now, but what happens, and this is why I'm a challenge at the Black church. We say we're prophetic, but when it gets to moments like this, we become pathetic to not to stand up for Derek Scott. Stand up for you don't make me gay. Stand up for you don't make me queer. Stand up for you makes me an ally to someone who's human. And I believe that to have you in solidarity with me, hell, it makes me better because you got gifts I don't have. I mean, whatever type of gifts, because I can do something to strengthen you and vice versa. But what we've done, we've lived into this narrative of this lie from, I'm going to say it, the GMC that separated us. So I say this, Derek, sexuality hadn't been our issue in the Black church, but my issue is we don't embrace it and we don't own our brothers. So I'm an alpha man, alpha phi alpha. So one of my fraternity brothers is Jay. I think what's Jay Williams? Is it
Jay Williams? Yeah.
Strong brother, but he's openly gay Black man. But guess what? He's still I can't kick him out of alpha phi alpha. That's my brother.
Yeah.
So, and we have dialogue. So I wanted to have a conversation, and it never happened. Maybe you can do this, and I would probably highly recommend you do it. And you can say the Spirit gave it to you through Mike Bowie. What is it like for Black people to have a conversation? Because we're not a monolith. We're straight, gay. We're trying to figure this thing out, but we're Black. People see you as a Black person. They don't see you as a Black Republican. They see you as a Black man or a Black woman. And I say that, how can our Blackness be the thing that brings us together and not sexuality be the thing that separates us?
That is it.
So that's why I am, man. When I talk about a movement, the movement is going to be straight gay in our community. And man, think about it. If we could hold that intention, man, we'll be a powerful force. We'll scare the hell out of people. I mean, because the wishes that we have, but we've lived into this doggone lie. And now if we could get past that, man, I believe that we would have a stronger community. I talked to my stepbrother the other day, and he's doing great stuff. But it's like, I don't trip on his sexuality. I mean, I don't care who you in relation with, Derek. But guess what? I got a relation with you. But I think the conservative and they have taken this thing, and I'm like, man, where's Jesus in all this? What does Imago Dei has to do with all this? So that's my I would say if I be around here, Derek, I'm 92. That's why I'm giving my life to. I want to raise my grandsons and maybe granddaughter, whoever we have coming in, to be a person who really honors and respects humanity.
Yeah.
Pastor Rudy Rasmus, one of my mentors, he said, Mike, because mind you, I've progressed. I've come a long way, man.
And hopefully we're all on a journey towards perfection and being more like Jesus. So
And I would say that because, and you said this wasn't a slippery slope, but I think it's the elephant in the room that we don't talk about. But Pastor Rudy said something. He said, when we start determining who's in or who's out of the kingdom of God, you're skating on thin ice. Because we don't have a heaven or a hell to put anybody in. But by the grace of God, hopefully I'm on my way to heaven.
Yeah.
And I say that, man. But I don't think people have enough holy boldness to have these conversations, because this conversation, it just makes me an ally. In closing, Bayard Rustin, is it Bayard Rustin? Bayard Rustin. He was an openly gay black man, but he couldn't be openly gay in community because many nights this dude got beat up, but he was responsible for the organization of the civil rights movement. Dr. King said if it wasn't for him, it would have been chaos.
Yeah.
Now everybody has a role to play. So this is nothing new. So how do we allow people to live in who they are, operate in their gifts, maximize their strengths, and we just experience heaven on earth, So I say that, man. We've come a long way, but I'm speaking for my black people. But black people, we got a long way to go. And had I known you were a gay black man coming on, guess what? I would have had me some questions rated. That didn't even matter. You see what I'm saying? So we got to get past that, man. So I think we could be a better. We have a moment to reshape history.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna say this, man. Our short-sightedness, our sin. If we can be people of grace, we talking about we love the theology of grace, man. I don't see grace a lot of times. I didn't see grace in 2019. I saw legalism.
Yeah.
So,
Dr. Mike, that is powerful personally. So thank you. You said many things that I want us to follow up on, but there's one thing in particular, and it's a tactic that I often see happen in sort of the battles for the culture, where there is this sort of strategy of divide and conquer, if you will.
Yeah. Good word.
And I think that's one thing that we've seen in the last few years of wrestling around disaffiliations and things like that. And let me just name, I know that there are people who are listening who have a different perspective, and
we respect
the bar and the bar of the conference is going to include some of those conversations. So stay tuned. But I want to go to one particular piece around that division that happens in the Black church. Thank you for naming the ways that sexuality divides us when our Blackness could bring us back together.
Right.
One thing I think also happens is the differences in generations. What do you think about this division that occurs with the generations in the Black church?
Yeah.
Where you do have a Kirby John Caldwell or a Rudy Rasmus, and then you've got a Kevin Kosh, and you've got a Nathalie Jones Parker.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there's this huge gulf between these two. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure that I know that Pastor Rudy has elevated the next generation.
Yeah.
So I know. So, but I think you hear what I'm
I know
asking
you're going.
here.
Yeah. I would say this, man. Great point. And I talk about this in my book. I see hear people say that, but I think right now this is an intergenerational movement. I think you need the experience of the boomers. I'm a Gen Xer, the kind of sandwich forgotten generation.
I'm on the back end of it. So yes, with you.
Mm-hmm. Then you have the millennials. Mm-hmm. Then you have the Gen Zers, and now you have the alpha. Everybody has a role to play. And I think Psalms 145 says, and each generation will tell the story of the awesomeness of God. So I think what I saw in the Black churches I serve, the disconnect, Derek, and I would say this is not a broad universal stroke, but one of the issues I saw is boomers, first of all, they dealt with segregation. Mm-hmm. They drank out of separate water fountains. They were just treated less than human. So to live into this humanity that I am man. Remember the whole the I am man, I am woman. Trying to wrestle with their humanness, being boy, and go back. Being boy on a job, but being brother and sister in the church. Being subjugated on a job, but being elevated in a church. So this position gave them status. They didn't want to let that go because that gave them a sense of being, because everybody's struggling with something. Quick example, I was talking to a former member where I was pastoring, and this person is probably 75, 72, 70, about 73. I said, hey, brother such and such, what I've heard here is it's time to get new leaders involved and blah, blah, blah. What would it look like? He said, well, I want to lead. I said, you can lead, but you don't have to be the chair. And your name will have to be on everything. He said, but he needed that to validate his identity. Mm-hmm. I said, but what would it look like if, because you're a follower of Jesus, that you would take all that lived experience and pour into somebody like me or a millennial? Mm-hmm. That's the greatest thing you could do. Mm-hmm. What you think about that? He was like, yeah, but I'm like, no, ain't no buts. I was trying to shift so everybody can be in the shared leadership moment. But I think so I believe right now old things are dying off. I don't want people to die, but people are dying every day. Somebody died just this moment since we've been on this podcast. Several people have died. But I think we have to die to old ways of thinking, old ways of doing, because if we don't die, if we don't shift, we're going to continue to decline. And I think I going back to the Black church, if we could embrace all generations, man, that's power. That's power. That's power. I mean, so even like Gen Z, they are so entrepreneurial. So how do we use that spirit, that mindset to permeate into someone, who may be a boomer? I mean, and even how does a Gen Z help a baby boomer? They set up their stuff on their iPhone. They do all the stuff, anyway, right now. But in the church, how can a millennial be the head of SPRC?
Come on.
I'm not saying own it, but leading it.
Yeah.
Because that's an early 40-year-old, late 30-year-old right now. Mm-hmm. So I think it's about being confident in self, knowing who you are. I said it several times, and whose you are, and not be driven by titles, but be driven by tasks. Oh. So I think sexuality has been a divider. Age has been a divider, and it's kept us weak. I mean, we've gotten weak, and not realizing, for the lack of a better word, we're better together. So we need each other.
What do you think General Conference 2020 that will be in 2024?
Yeah.
What do you think that space needs to be about?
General Conference needs to shift. For those who are listening, I would say right now, the way you can't legislate change, a committee doesn't do that. I think it's valuing persons and honoring their stories. I think if you, this what you're doing, when I read the description, setting the bar, because we set the bar, as you said, at annual conference. If the bar could be set based on relationships and on impactful stories, I
Hmm.
think you have a great day. So what would it look like at each moment of legislation conversation? It was a story that really heightened all the language and the Christianese and the legalese and the therefore whereas is resolution talk, but the stories matter. And I think now we have to shift our measurings from matrix to how do we value and measure relationships. So I think that's where General
Good.
Conference needs to go in a nutshell. How do you do it? I don't know, but I think it can happen if we want to shift.
What does the United Methodist Church need to do if it really wants to strengthen the Black church for the future?
That's good. That's a whole nother podcast. I think, first of all, realizing that all people matter to God, that Black people have brought sacred worth and value to this denomination. And first of all, to say that publicly and to say I'm sorry, to repent. And we get it for Native Americans. It hadn't happened for Black people. It's been kind of tongue in cheek, but that we matter. And we, like 4%? I mean, but with 13% of the population, but saying, you know what, we want to see this happen. And we're willing to invest the time, the talent, the treasure, the resources to make it happen. I think we've done a piss poor job to really grow this denomination with people of color. I think it's been a lid placed on us, but if we really want to see this thing turn around, as Viola Davis said, man, give us an opportunity and watch what happens.
Dr. Mike Bowie, thank you for just a powerful conversation.
Thank you, man.
Personally and in all the ways. I'm grateful for your prophetic voice. I'm grateful for your insight and your understanding of what's happening. And I am praying that you will continue to be trusted with this space, with this role, so that we can, by strengthening the Black church, make the United Methodist Church stronger.
Yeah.
For the sake of the gospel. Yeah. For the sake of transforming the world.
Amen.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks a lot.
We hope you enjoyed the episode. Bar of the Conference is produced by the team at Wesley's Revival, a ministry of Studio Wesley. Subscribe to this show on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or Google platforms so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.